Muted, Rob.
That is a great start to
all your best stuff.
It
was all your best stuff as well. You've wasted it on mute. What a shame.
That was the best intro I've ever done. And it'll never be heard.
My lip reading skills were going crazy for a second.
Let's start again. Welcome to the Instant Reaction live stream, SeahawksDraftBlog.com. Rob Staton, Adam Nathan, and Robbie Williams with you here tonight. And what a win. You know, another great win for the Seahawks. I think that the way that they bounced back from that pick six to have 3 drives like that on offense, I've already written this on the blog, I don't think I've ever been more impressed with a way an offense has responded, a Seahawks offense has responded to adversity. That was incredible. So we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about the game. We'll talk about what it means for the future. We'll talk about the NFC, given that it's working out very, very well for Seattle. We may even touch a little bit on next week as well, because I'm going to be heading over to Germany to watch that game between the Seahawks and the Bucs, who've just beaten the Rams, which is interesting as well. So lots to get into. Get your super chats in if you have a question, or if you want to say something in the comment section, send a super chat. Before I go to the fellas, the Snail has already sent one in for $5. Okay, I'm there with Geno. Sign him, and I'll take a Miles Murphy and Trenton Simpson, please. You know, the first bit of the Snail's comment there, I'm all down with. The second bit, not as much. Maybe we'll come on to that later. Give John a swing at a quarterback in the second and third round. No, not buying that. Not with this quarterback class. There's nobody in the second and third round that I would take. And Miles Murphy and Trenton Simpson just had an absolute horror show against Notre Dame yesterday. So anyway, that's negative stuff. On to the positives. Robbie, what did you think of that Seahawks win today?
Yeah, I mean, overall, the beginning of that game and kind of this going into that second half, how frustrating that first half was. It seems like things were just like falling apart. Offense wasn't tackling, offense wasn't putting drives together, and then here you go. They put together a second half that was one for the books. I mean, just really was fun to watch. Was surprising to see them bounce back with a little attitude. I mean, I think Kenneth Walker had like 9 carries in the first half, and I just kept saying, run the damn ball, run the ball. And then here he is to close it out. And Geno came back with a vengeance. Granted, you know, that one should have been picked, but I mean, man, I'm starting to believe that this team could actually make some noise. I'm starting to believe it. And I can't believe I'm saying that.
Adam, what did you make of that?
Well, as I said last week, I wasn't sure I was going to be able to make this because I was working and I got in just as the Seahawks began their touchdown drive to retake the lead after the pick six. So I don't know what you guys are worried about. I saw a perfect game from start to finish as long as I was watching. From obviously what I was reading, it didn't sound like it was the greatest first 2.5 quarters. But if there's one thing this team are doing, it's, they're learning every week. They're sort of like an AI robot that kind of teaches itself new things and is able to learn from previous problems and learn and pick stuff up. And, they're picking up this ability to come back from adversity and turn on the Jets and win. And to close a game out in the fourth quarter like that, which, from what I saw was just dominance. I mean, all right, we'll just send 2 guys in motion, roll Geno out, take a pass. And I think as Adam and Amin and the other guy in the broadcast were saying, like, you have no way to stop us. And it was quite fitting that that's the way that they won it with the Noah Fant. Ultimately won it with that Noah Fant long run at the end. It was just a case of, well, if you can't stop us, then we're just going to keep doing what we want to do. And thanks very much for the win, and we'll go home now.
I like the fact that people are already in the comments saying that Adam has to watch every snap for the rest of the season now, because if he's obviously the good luck charm.
Yeah, I don't think that's exactly how the cookie crumbles with regards to the 3 losses that I've seen so far. But I'm very thrilled to be seen as this the bastion of good luck for the team. I'll take that.
So I had another super chat from Jeremy. Jeremy, thanks for your support there and the super chat. Keep those coming in. We are going to talk about all sorts. I want to talk about the bits that Adam didn't see first, Robbie, and then go on to obviously the way that ended, because to me, it felt a little bit like what the Seahawks were trying to do in this game is we've seen them play Arizona a number of times, and this Vance Joseph defense has kind of taken over from the Todd Bowles defense. They're very similar, blitz heavy, very creative. They've always seemed to give Seattle a lot of problems. And as I was watching the game, I thought, they're playing things a bit close to the chest here, because I think what they want to do is avoid chaos. I think they just want to get in and out of the plays. I thought that they felt like they could just manage the game better than Arizona on the day, which, is not a bad plan to have, frankly, given the way that Arizona has played this year. And while it was 10-7, it was an okay plan. And they were kind of keeping things at arm's length, and it was fine. But then when you have the pick six, the game's changed. Suddenly you're 4 points behind. You have got to force the issue a little bit. The crowd suddenly woke up and were in the game for the first time, the only time in the game. And there's pressure on Geno Smith there. His stat line's not that impressive. The offense has not really pushed the ball downfield at all. Ken Walker's not been able to get going. Can they turn it on at that moment? And the 3 drives that followed, I mean, I cannot speak highly enough of what was achieved there. I think everybody deserves credit, but I think more than anything, Geno Smith deserves the most credit, because his attitude to throwing that pick six was just calmness personified. It was just, I'm just going to, okay, that's happened now. Let's get back to it and go and win the game of football. And I think that calm attitude and the execution, there was only that one real blip where he threw it to somebody, and it looked ugly, didn't it, where it bounced up in the air and it was almost picked off. But he was throwing to a Seahawks guy. The guy was there. He got position. He was throwing it to a receiver. It wasn't that ugly when you saw it from behind the quarterback's view. Apart from that, it was just beautifully constructed, all of those drives. Shane Waldron deserves credit, but Geno Smith's attitude and his calmness, I think, just was infectious. The offensive line executed, the running back executed, the tight ends, the receivers, everybody just sort of came together in that moment. You will not see a better reaction to a pick six in the NFL this season. That was unbelievable. And in the end, they won very comfortably as a consequence, Robbie.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you just said there. I mean, the spot on, the way he responded was how you want your quarterback to respond, right? And I think these are why, people are starting to believe in Geno, and they believe in him as a leader as well. It's super cool to watch him kind of do that. For me, I'm going to give my props to Ryan Neal. That guy, Kyler Murray had 20-some yard run. And I thought, no, they're going to come out and score. It's just really going to get ugly here. And because we couldn't get anything going, all of a sudden he popped that ball out, and man, he saved me from breaking a TV. So overall, I just like the way this guy's playing, and I don't want to get too negative, with the amount of money we're putting into the safety position. But man, I'd really like to see that guy back. Just like the way he plays, and he also seems like one of those leaders on the defense that people are rallying around. Just overall, man, this has been a pleasant season to watch.
Yeah, it really has. And Ryan Neal is a good person to highlight, because that was a huge play. That's a big 3 points. If they get a field goal, I mean, there was still time for them to get a touchdown on that drive. I think even if they get a field goal, they go in at halftime level. It's a different game. There's a huge momentum swing at the end there. There's a huge play from Ryan Neal. Got a few super chats coming in. Before I turn back to Adam, and the Snails sent another one in. K9 is the best closer in pro sports. And he says, suck it, MLB. Okay.
Hey, I got it.
I understand the reference. I maybe don't understand the bitterness to the baseball league, but there we go. Kyle, thank you, Kyle. $10. Is Russell Wilson the real reason this offense wasn't working or looking this good last season, or is year 2 for Waldron and his line coach and the 2 tackles that made the difference? That's an interesting question, Carl. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your question. Let me sort of put that to you then, Adam, because my take on it, as we're watching the season go along, is, I've said this before, that the Shanahan tree were not keen on Russell Wilson. So it was never likely he was going to go somewhere like the Jets, for example, because he doesn't fit the Shanahan offense, which in its most basic terms can be described as, I'm going to give you this. If you get this look, you need to go here. If you get this look, you need to go here. You just need to execute, which is why generally he goes for the quarterbacks. Like he really wanted Kirk Cousins. It's why Matt Ryan won an MVP under his leadership. It's why there's a lot of people thought they were going to go for Matt Jones and were quite surprised they went for Trey Lance. It's why they brought in Jimmy Garoppolo. They don't need that Mahomes type necessarily to function. They just need someone who can get from A to B from that offense. And Russell Wilson's not that kind of player. Russell Wilson is a scrambling, creative, improvising quarterback. And the McVay offense is very similar to the Shanahan offense. Now we're seeing Geno Smith go in there and execute at a high level in a way that, Russell Wilson, we don't have to badmouth Russell Wilson in saying that maybe he's not the best fit for this kind of offense, and maybe Geno Smith is. Now, you also have to say Geno Smith's playing fantastically well, better than anybody expected. But at the same time, yes, he's probably a better fit for this offense, Adam.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is a sort of a microcosm of the issue, and maybe goes back to the Waldron comment that Carl made in the super chat there. But I don't know if it was the day before Wilson got traded or the day after he got traded, but free agency had just started and the news dropped, and the Seahawks, all Seahawks fans thought, we need to make a bit of a splash. You'd love a bit of a splash. And the first thing that came down for Seattle, as far as I remember, was Will Disley getting $24 million over 2 years. And I think everyone just looked at their phone and thought, is there a decimal place missing? Because that seems ridiculous. But you watch the way they play. I'd play with 9 tight ends out at the minute, the way in which they're fighting. It's amazing. I didn't even know you were allowed to do this. And I just wonder if, the Wilson thing is by the by. Everyone's going to have their own opinions on that. I think maybe clearly we look better off without him, but I don't know if that's because of him or for whatever reason. So let's try and focus on the positives. And I would say that what Shane Waldron has done with the offense is just opening up stuff that I don't think any of us can even remember seeing from a Seahawks team. The way, the misdirection, the easy just pitch and catch. And it's made someone like Will Disley feel like a, 2-year decent amount of money player, which a couple of years ago you wouldn't even thought was even a comprehensible thing to do. So I'm going to go with the positive and say that I think what Shane Waldron done this year has been borderline remarkable. And I think he deserves all the praise he gets from all quarters.
I love the fact that people in the chat, because this draft conversation has kind of like developed over the weeks as Seattle has won 4 games in a row. People are now talking about which tight end they can draft early next year. We've gone from the quarterbacks to the defensive linemen, and now we're on tight ends, so they can throw another tight end out there. Maybe Michael Mayer in the first round. Someone says Darnell Washington. That's, and to be honest, it's with the way the tight ends are playing. All of a sudden, you kind of think, well, is it the worst thing in the world to sort of invest in a top-notch tight end? Because for years it kind of felt like the wasted position in Seattle, and now it feels like a critical position. We've also had a super chat here from Slacky Hero. Thank you for your support, $10. Never thought this group would be 6-3 after week 9. Neither did I. It's nice not watching heart attacks anymore. Even after the pick, I felt pretty good that Geno would settle down, and he did. And the Rams lost. LFG. I must admit, I had a little bit of a heart attack game, Robbie. It felt like one of those games to me. When it went, the interception sort of made me feel disappointed because I really didn't want him to blow this game because Arizona's not a good team. Cliff Kingsbury looks incredibly stressed. He just looks like somebody who needs to. We were talking about this about Kyler Murray when Seattle beat them in Seattle. Cliff Kingsbury looks like he needs a holiday. He just looks awful. And Kyler Murray's arguing with his teammates. It was New Hopkins today. The team just looks dysfunctional, and you have to beat a team like that. And we did. But there was a little bit of me that just worried when that pick 6 happened. Robbie's like, oh, they're not going to, this isn't going to be not Detroit, New Orleans and Atlanta, is it? They're not going to throw this away, are they? But they didn't. In the end, wow, that the way those 3 drives at the end, just absolutely superb. Fantastic.
Yeah, I had a couple of those worries as well. And there's a couple times where I was, just wondering what kind of game this would be. And, if we're going to take a loss, get out of Arizona without an injury kind of thing. But they just seem to turn it around. I want to kind of go back to that last comment though, where, we're 6-3 and I know it's still early. We're about halfway through the season, so I don't want to say anything, but does it feel like maybe this might be Pete Carroll's best coaching job he's ever done? Like this is like maybe one of those kind of things where, and I will fully eat crow on this because I was wanting to stick with Russ and fire Pete. But I mean, apart from the way the defense has played for the first 4 weeks, they seem to really turn it around. And I don't know how much of that is Waldron or if it's Pete just letting Waldron take control of the offense, but this feels like one of the better coaching job Pete Carroll has done with this team. And I feel like, you see a lot of these guys win, and I'm not about the accolades, but win the coach of the year, whatever it is. If John Snyder and Pete Carroll aren't up for, first of all, for the way John Snyder drafted, if he doesn't get GM of the year, I would be shocked. And then if Pete is at least in consideration for coach of the year, I would be shocked, because it's a complete shock to all of us. The way Geno is playing, the way the offense is rolling, we're relying on a ton of rookies. This season is just, I wouldn't have believed it. If you would have told me 6-3, I just would have never believed it.
Yeah, I don't think it's I think it's hard to say it's better than a Super Bowl season. I think that has to be winning a Super Bowl will, unless he wins another one, will probably be his best coaching job. I think it sort of just goes in the territory of winning a championship. But I think this is as good as anything else he's achieved. And I'm right with you there, Robbie. I was somebody who would have definitely preferred pre-Russell Wilson trade for a change, if there was going to be a change, for a Sean Payton type to come in, or Daboll. And in fairness, Daboll's doing well in New York. I would have been happy for him to come in and have a look at this offense and try and take it in a new direction, and maybe that would have worked. Who knows? We'll never know. But I also wanted them to do something. What I didn't want, the one thing I didn't want, was status quo continuing for another year. And I was, if you remember, Robbie, when we did that epic stream after the Russell Wilson trade, which went on for about 2 hours, we were just so happy, I think, because something was going to be different this year, that it was going to be different. I think that's what we wanted more than anything. But this was not my preference. And I was
it was a little validation as well, because we had been talking about it for 2 years and we were getting hammered for it. So.
When the defense was playing the way it was in the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, I think you cannot have criticized, I don't think, anybody for wondering whether they made Pete was the right guy, because that defensive performance in the first 4 weeks was dreadful. I mean, it was worse than dreadful. So I don't think there's anything wrong with questioning that. But equally, now is the time to go, wow, what a fantastic job he's doing. There's absolutely no doubt at all that he's doing a brilliant job. He deserves to be in the coach of the year conversation. It's masterful. I hope that it's long term, that this is something, that we're at the start of something that could be a few years, rather than just one crazy, glorious Geno Smith inspired year, because there's been seasons like that. And I think he's playing a lot better than Case Keenum did with the Vikings. But Case Keenum was what, in the NFC Championship game, the year that Nick Foles won the Super Bowl. I mean, look, that kind of thing can happen, but then neither Nick Foles nor Case Keenum did anything after that year. So I hope that this is going to be something. If Geno Smith's the quarterback now for more than just this season, I hope this is something that can last. But right now, I'm just going to enjoy it, and I'm happy to admit that that sort of my concerns about Pete Carroll have gone away. And yeah, what a fantastic job he is doing, and it needs to be said, and it has now been said. We've had another super chat from A Square, and it says, outside of the Chiefs, Bills, and Eagles, I think this team can give any other team a run for their money. Really impressive comeback from Geno. And Adam, I'd go along with that. There aren't many teams that I think the Seahawks would struggle to give them a game now. And I was watching Red Zone. The Bills have just lost to the Jets. And the Jets played a brand of football in beating the Bills, which was just running the ball and playing good defense. So can the Seahawks give the Bills a game? Yes. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they get on against the Chiefs on Christmas Eve. But I think they'd give the Eagles a game. I don't know if they'd necessarily win, but I think they'd give them a bloody good game. And when I look at the NFC, there isn't that much to be scared about.
It's really interesting. We in the UK, sort of watching the Premier League, would say that so much of it's ruined because there's teams with the most money. They win every time, and we need parity. And watching the NFL this year, whilst it's kind of great that everyone is vaguely on a similar plane and there isn't this dominant force, I do feel like it's quite weird or quite difficult to kind of situate teams on a who's good, who's bad, because every week sort of teams seem to beat each other that you're not quite expecting. And There's part of me that thinks that whilst we all hated the Patriots in their amazing run, sort of having that Death Star team that everyone could come around and celebrate beating, you kind of need a reference point of a team like that. And I find it really difficult to decipher watching week in, week out, who is good and who is bad. And I think in a way that the parity level has become so strong in the NFL at the minute that that's not great from a general, put Rob Lowe's NFL shield hat on for the Super Bowl kind of thing. However, for the Seahawks, it couldn't have come at a better time, because whereas we might be the 8th, 9th, 10th best team on a year, in a year where Drew Brees was at his best and Aaron Rodgers and there's Brady and Cam Newton is ripping it up, there isn't that at the minute. And, we mentioned it last week, I think, but I don't think you need to squint too much to potentially see this team making a run, in part because the competition around us isn't that great. And ultimately, if you do go on and win playoff games or whatever, there isn't this asterisk, by the way, wasn't actually a great standard that season. That doesn't feature in any of the record books or any of the TV shows. It's just, they won 2 playoff games. That's amazing. And so I would urge the Seahawks that we need to have the mindset that we have to cash in right now, because Geno is balling out. He's under contract for this year. And you can't think, build on it for next year, that it'll be great. Right now is a time where we need to be looking at doing something. And I really think that we're 6-3. So there's no time to make apologies for that. Let's try and think that this is the time to have a run at it, because we know in this sport of all sports, a year can change so much. So let's forget about, obviously we're going to talk about the draft, but I really think we need to focus on, let's shift the goalposts. Let's win 2 playoff games this year. Let's go and do it, because the team's good enough to do it. We've seen it for the last month. There's no one playing better really in the NFC outside of Philadelphia. So go and show it and get to the championship game.
Well, if they continue and if they win the NFC West, Robbie, they will. Well, at the moment they're the number 3 seed. I think I'm right in saying that the Bucs and the Falcons are both tied on 4 and 5 at the top of the NFC South now. So they're the number 4 seed. So the Seahawks would get they would get a home game, wouldn't they? And would then have to play on the road in the divisional round, I think. Yes. And then, and then they would obviously have the potential of an NFC championship if they get that far. There are definitely some teams, Robbie, that if Seattle, we're talking about playoffs now, and that's probably a bit too, trying to project too far ahead, because the Niners obviously are looking quite strong. That, if anything, they're the team I wouldn't want to play in the playoffs, frankly. I think there'd be too much at stake. And although Seattle's got a good record against Shanahan and the Niners over the years, they have just got that, as we saw last year, that ability when it matters. I'd almost like to see them somehow get bumped off or really down the line, not qualify for the playoffs, which I think is unlikely. But there are teams, Robbie, that I wouldn't want to play away in the playoffs. Philadelphia would be tough. Dallas would be tough. The Niners would be tough. But that's really it. And if you've got more than one home playoff game, then there's not really that much to fear in the NFC. And I kind of agree with Adam. I think this is, my mindset now is all in. You go for it this year. You try and achieve whatever you can. I'm going to try and enjoy it. The problem is that enjoying it in this situation becomes more stressful, because you really want them to win every game, as opposed to just kind of taking a back seat and hoping for the best. Now every win feels vital. Every agonizing loss will hurt more than it would otherwise. There's not the comfort of, draft position at the end, because you kind of think, no, that could cost you a seeding place or a divisional title. I think that is going to be everybody's mindset now, Rob. It's how far can you take this? And if they're in the AFC, I'd think there'd be a natural conclusion to 1 playoff game or 2 playoff games is the max you could probably get, and you will just run into a Mahomes on his best day or Josh Allen, and that's that. But in the NFC, who knows? And Adam's right. There's no asterisk. Just go for it. You've just got to try and stay healthier than the rest and find a bit of form. Joe Flacco won a freaking Super Bowl. Nick Foles won a freaking Super Bowl. You know, this is everyone's saying what a great story it is with Geno Smith. Would be an even better story if he managed to get to the bloody Super Bowl. I can't believe I've just said that, by the way.
Yeah, I think for me, I went in the season with zero expectations, so everyone feels like absolutely glorious and just like, you know, I still have that mindset where I didn't have expectations going. I thought we were just going to be playing for, you know, playoff or for you know, draft position, and how fun is it now to actually be winning games and seeing people make plays, and you know, you're getting off the edge of your chair and getting excited again. I'm really happy about this. And I'll go back to also what you guys were talking about with, you know, the seeding and playoffs. And I mean, if you look at the NFC East, I think every team has a winning record in that division, right? So I don't think it's a guarantee that the Niners would make it. We have to win the NFC West, and I think, you know, the other playoff teams will come from there. I don't think it'll be two teams from the NFC West. I think it'll be just one. So whoever wins the division is the only team that's going to make it. I think it's going to be, you know, the teams from the NFC East.
I suppose it could potentially come from the NFC East. I don't know. It's just, I guess the funny thing is, Adam, is there are just teams that you would expect to be contenders or a threat that are just collapsing. It's not even that they're just looking like the Packers are they just lost to the worst team in the NFL. At least the worst team coming into this weekend in Detroit. Maybe Detroit won't be the worst team in the league, but they just lost to Detroit. You've got the Rams, the defending Super Bowl champions. I saw a tweet, I think, from Shield Kapadia just before we started this thing saying that felt like a season-ending loss for the Rams today against the Buccaneers. You know, they are two teams that at the start of the year, even if they didn't get the number one seed, you would be expecting them to be a postseason team. And if they get there, a real threat. On top of that, what are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? They're either going to be what they were a couple of years ago and catch fire at some point and become the team to beat in the playoffs because Tom Brady, etc., or they're just not very good anymore. I don't know, but they could easily be another Rams and another Packers, and they might have just benefited from playing the Rams today. I guess we'll find out a little bit more in Germany next week. But they're these teams that you just expected to be good that are not just not good, but they're crap.
Like, name recognition obviously goes a long way in all of sport, and the NFL is no different. And as you say, people probably wake up in the morning on Sunday and think, well, the Packers, you know, they're good. The Rams, well, they must be good. They're Super Bowl champions. But you know how Bill Barnwell puts out those tweets of the sort of 2D images of each play, and you can just see it from a bird's eye view of what the play is. If you were watching the games like that, you would say, well, most of the teams are absolute garbage. And the Seahawks are off the back of 4 double-digit wins in a row. Is that now, I think? Like, come on. Like, we have stumbled into a situation where something is on here, whether you like it or not. And yet it does mean that, oh God, you know, Tom Brady next week, we've got to try and win because, you know, at least the last time, well, you have a couple of schnitzels and a sausage and it'd be a good trip to Munich and whatever, but it matters now. And that's great. I mean, who would have thought that we could be in a position where the games actually matter? And I don't know, if you're not feeling those nerves on a day of a game, it's not as fun, because that's what we love sport for. And I really think we've stumbled into a situation where something is possible here, and let's embrace it. It could be fabulous. And if it's not, well, let's die trying, as far as I'm concerned.
I tell you now that I will definitely be having a massive German sausage next week. Whenever so in the city that I live, they have a German sort of Christmassy market thing every year. I don't really know why. A lot of the Yorkshire cities, Leeds has one as well, have these German Christmas markets. I think the Leeds one's cancelled again. But there's always a German sausage stall in the city centre. And it comes to Christmas time, I always go over and have, or occasionally have a sausage for lunch in a bowl, like a hot dog, but it's a German hot dog. I will definitely be having one of those next week. I can tell you that now. And Adam bringing it up has just reminded me to make sure that I get one. We've got a couple of super chats. This one from Mike. Thanks as always for the great content. Before you sign off, who's going to Munich and what's the best part of a fan weekend in Bavaria? I don't know. I have been to Bayern Munich's stadium before for a tour, and it was about 2 weeks before lockdown in 2019. So it feels like a long time ago. Lots happened since then. But I'll tell you this: when I was going on the tour of the Allianz Arena, is that what it's called? I've got it. I think I had this. No, I didn't have. I had a Seahawks bobble hat on, and the female tour guide turns to me and goes, "Are you a Seahawks fan?" And I was like, "Yes, I am." And she goes, "Me too." And we spent about 10 minutes talking about the Seahawks. So she'll be absolutely delighted that the Seahawks are coming to her home stadium, as I'm sure a lot of the Germans will be. And I'm hoping for a Seahawks home crowd when I go to Germany next week, and I'm very much looking forward.
Felt like a home crowd for this game too.
Yeah, there was. I'm sure.
That?
Yeah, there was a lot of Geno chants. There was a really loud Seahawks chant at the end when the Seahawks were on offense.
Yeah,
it was almost like an English football crowd that was.
I heard it in the first half too.
It was more sort of gruff and sort of masculine, that Seahawks chant, which is very much like an English football chant. It was as if a whole bunch of. I'm just going to pick a random team there, but Spurs fans. Adam's with us. Were there cheering on the Seahawks today. Adam's not happy. The Spurs lost today, so we won't mention that. BU Vandals says, no question, just go Hawks. Thank you for the super chat, BU Vandals. Keep those coming in. And Blitzy the Clown says, Seahawks are playing as Seahawky as any time since Rob originally coined the term. What a gutsy win. But I'm also excited to hear talk about draft prospects. There were some good performances yesterday. I have written, I think it's possibly the longest scouting notes thing I've done this year for tomorrow. It's already written. I was forced to go on the Harry Potter Warner Brothers tour by my wife and children yesterday. And then I got back and just consumed a load of college football, made up for lost time, and then woke up today and said, I am not doing anything today. I'm just watching this. And I watched loads of games all day and then just watched Red Zone. Another one here from DJ Jerry Nice. Can we have a minute to appreciate Nwosu? Yes, that's a good reminder. To appreciate Uchenna Nwosu, who has now got 7 sacks, I think it is, for the season, and he's still got half a season to go. That is, I mean, if you'd have said at the start of the season, Adam, 7 sacks for Nwosu, you'd probably think that's okay. It's not a bad season, that. But he's there already. I mean, now you're talking about maybe you could go and get 10, maybe you can go and get more, 12. What a signing he has been, because he's one of those. It's a bit like Will Disley. When you see the price, you think, okay, I can live with it, but what is it? Is it a bit too much? Now he looks like a bargain.
Without wanting to put words in both of your mouths, I would assume that if I'd said to you 3 months ago that on the 6th of November, a Seahawk will have 7 sacks, we would have unanimously said Darrell Taylor. Is that fair?
Yeah.
And it's just amazing how Uchenna has really taken the mantle of the lead guy. I think people naturally assumed, oh, wow, he'll be a great complementary piece to Darrell Taylor. And fair play to the guy. I mean, he's taken on the position of being basically the number one guy. And I think we said last week that, the Seahawks don't typically look to feature one guy as their 16, 17 sack guy. Well, he only needs one, performance against a, third string right tackle or whatever, and he could be catapulting himself up there. And there was a comment from Isaac, I think, on the chat, said, what about Bruce Irvin? I have to say about Bruce, I don't know what you guys thought about this. The day I found out he was re-signing, it was about 2 weeks after KJ Wright re-signed in order to retire. And I figured Bruce Irvin was doing the same thing. I just, not a name that you just remembered, really. I thought, well, that's such a nice gesture. He's going to sign it and retire. I think Adam Amin said on the commentary today, Pete Carroll brought him back to remind the Seahawk players of what it used to be like in the glory days and then show them how it works. And you'd wince at that normally because that does sound a little bit wishy-washy, but I try and learn something every year that as like a general point to carry me through the season. And as much as the analytics guys, do an awful lot for the benefit of fandom and they can teach you a load of things, there is part of me that just wonders, it's such a physical, emotional game that the personal element and the personality of the players, it must make an enormous difference. And whilst, hearing Pete say, oh, yeah, we brought Bruce back to remind the guys of the good times, you think, oh, piss off, Pete, if it was a year ago. But now, like, I get it. And I think it really could be one of those things that, I understand what you're saying. You're trying to imbue the modern bunch with the old mentality. And who are we to say that you're wrong? Because it's working right now.
Beautifully put. And I think I agree with everything you've said there. And in particular, I think you're right. I think one thing that this season is showing in many ways is that, because the sort of the comment, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but a lot of the things that the analytics crowd will say are things like, running the ball doesn't really matter, or running backs don't matter, and there's no such thing as momentum. But I think that there is, and I think it's easily seen in the last few weeks. There's no way you can't tell me, watching a Notre Dame team yesterday who lost to Stanford a few weeks ago, who just ran the crap out of Clemson's elite defensive line yesterday, that either running backs don't matter, or the running game doesn't matter, or there's no such thing as momentum, because that spiraled very, very quickly, and that turned into an absolute arse kicking. And that was today. Look at the momentum that built. Arizona got it, and no one's saying that once you have momentum, it's a cast iron thing, you keep it forever. The Seahawks just snatched it back and was like, you're not having it back now. That's it. This is ours, and finished the game superbly. So I think there is an emotional element to the game. It's too physical. It's too much of a battle on that field. Just look at every play. I mean, it's not just the ball carrier who's getting hammered by a defender on every snap. It's two offensive linemen crashing into each other, down after down after down after down. Your body is just feeling like you've been in a car crash after every single week. There has to be some sort of emotion to that. There has to be something that goes beyond, if you do this X% of the time, it will work, and that's how the game is run. There's definitely value in that. You have to pay attention to that stuff, but it's not the only thing. There is a physical and an emotional element to the game as well, and that's why it's brilliant, because it does combine, analytics and tactics with brute force. That's why I love the game, because it's like a chess game, but a war and a chess game at the same time. And it's fantastic. And it's what makes football so good for me. Darth Soldier says, let's just say that I was thinking this would be a 2-win season. So every win from now on is just icing on the cake. And I'm absolutely loving it. I think we all are, Darth. I think it's just a very exciting season. I can't wait to see where it turns next. Robbie, some other players that I want to mention. Shelby Harris. I absolutely love Shelby Harris. I'm making it my mission to try and get at least 2 minutes with Shelby Harris after the game next week. Because having interviewed him for the YouTube channel, I'm hoping he might talk to me again in Munich. But I just love everything he does. I think that play last week when he ran after Daniel Jones was just one of my favorite 5 plays of the season so far. And there's loads to choose from. And then seeing him get another big sack today. Adam's talking about that emotional side of it with Bruce Irvin. I get the sense that Shelby Harris brings a lot of that as well. And listen, and the other point I want to make on Shelby Harris, people talk about the trade for Russell Wilson, and they talk about the picks. Noah Fant had a massive contribution today. Shelby Harris is having a massive contribution. It's not just the picks. And also, when people talk about John Schneider being Executive of the Year, they will talk about the draft class. Talk about the complete entirety of that trade. Shelby Harris is doing a great job. And Noah Fant, all right, it's his turn this week, and next week it'll probably be Colby Parkinson or it'll be Will Disley. They're rotating who has the big game from the tight ends. But the fact that he had a big game today, you just got him as a throw-in in the Russell Wilson trade. Fantastic.
Yeah, Shelby Harris he's incredible. It's been fun just to see kind of him line in and play at that D line position. If you're talking about guys who are like, you kind of want to talk about, I feel like this might be a negative, but it's also a positive. I feel like Quandre Diggs should pay Kobe Bryant like some money or take him out for a beer or something, because that's twice now that he's gotten a penalty on Kobe Bryant's first interception and hasn't had a chance to actually get a pick. But for me, it's Kobe Bryant. Also, I like the point. Like, I know it ended up not being a fumble, but that guy always gets around the ball to punch it out, and it's super cool to see someone who attacks the football and has that kind of Pete mentality. It's all about the ball. Go get it. And he seems to, I mean, I could get negative and talk about his tackling ability and the way he just tries to hit guys instead, but I'm choosing to stick with positive. I love the way he attacks the football and tries to knock it out. I think it's great to see, and just getting turnovers is so much better than what we had last year, right? We didn't really feel like we were getting a lot. So we actually get turnovers this year. Super cool to see him, and just as a rookie, just seeing him do that.
Yeah, fantastic. We've got another super chat from Blitzy. Well said, Rob. Football is chess for the gladiator crowd. I think that's a good way of putting it. It's like chess with gladiators hitting each other for 60 minutes over 3.5 hours. I think it's just fantastic, and I'm loving the way that this team's playing. And I think that's the other thing, Adam, is the Pete Carroll ethos has always been about all of the sides of the ball connecting. And it does feel like that. They're not reliant on one player. This is not, dare I say, the Chiefs may well get to the Super Bowl because of Patrick Mahomes. But if they get to the Super Bowl, it will be because he's got Mahomes with Kelsey, and they'll make the most of that situation. Andy Reid's been there, done it, got the T-shirt. It's a large T-shirt, an extra large one. But he's got it nonetheless. If the Bills, the Bills have got a somewhat complete team, so it doesn't really count for them. But do you see what I mean? Like there are teams that are succeeding because they have a superstar, whereas with Seattle, it feels a lot more like it is a team, and often it is the teams who get to the postseason who can run the ball, who can play a bit of defense, who can go far. And I think the one thing that will perhaps hold Seattle back, and I really hope that this doesn't happen, is injuries. They've just got to avoid that injury bug. There are several players they can't live without, and I think Geno Smith's one. I think Ken Walker's another. Because how many years in a row have the Seahawks sort of lost their key running back later in the season, and then it's been the Travis Homer, DJ Dallas, and whoever we can find on the street show. They can't go down that road. They need to keep their offensive tackles healthy. They need their sort of key defensive pieces to stay on it. And if they can do that, and it's really hard to get through a season without, because I think the Seahawks, relatively speaking, have been okay so far for injuries. It's just kind of Rashard Penny and Jamal Adams. But apart from that, they've kind of got through it for the most part. That's what's going to be key to sort of getting through this, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about it being the ultimate team game, and I'm just scrambling around to see how many targets DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett have had. I can't find the exact number, but I would imagine that if we said in August, after week 9, DK will have had this many targets and Tyler would have had this many targets, you'd be thinking, "Ooh, that's not the recipe for a good Seahawk team." I guess we all assumed it was, the passing game was basically going to be whichever quarterback was throwing to those two. And the way in which they've moved the ball around, I think it was Mike Leach of all people, when he talked about what balance meant to him, was not that it's 50% run, 50% pass, but it was distributing the ball to all of your targets on a regular basis. And I don't think Pete's quite as crazy as Mike Leach, although he might give him a run for his money at times. But there is a bit of that in the sense that the team are playing a balanced style of football, in the sense that they just pitch and catch to whoever's the open guy. And it could be Colby Parkinson, it could be Noah Fant. I saw someone today saying, "Oh, today's the Noah Fant game," and it's quite indicative that they're setting something in motion where you don't really know who the team are going to look to feature from one week to the other. Whereas last year it was, it's going to be Lockett and Metcalf, and that's your lot. So it's great to watch that. And I think for progressing the team, and playing what I guess you would argue this is an understrength roster versus what a Super Bowl team would look like in future. If you can split it up and not show an over reliance on one or two players, not to say that we could survive a DK Metcalf rest of the season injury. I think that would be, a catastrophe. Same as Tyler Lockett. It certainly helps the fact that there is this ability to, where if one target goes down, oh my God, what was supposed to do now? there's 6 or 7 guys that are regular receivers of the ball, and that makes an enormous difference.
I know that Adam said that he wants to focus on the here and now and not the draft. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about, because it's just, Seahawks draft blog. We need to spend a little bit of time looking at the future, but I'm going to combine it to the present as well. I think the exciting thing is you can sort of see a recipe for the success for this team in its current form for the beyond just this year. And I think the good thing is that they've managed to sort of get this team together, and now they've got 2 first-round picks next year, 2 second-round picks, and a third-round pick. Now they don't have the money. We've talked about that. And the minute this re-sign Geno Smith and a kicker and Poona Ford maybe and players like that, they will not have much to spend. So they're not going to be able to do anything in free agency, I don't think, apart from retain. But then they have the picks to try and go and have another draft class. And then, look, I think everything should be on the table. What Seahawks fans will ultimately do now is sort of say, well, do this, do that. That we need, I think the main thing someone's going to say, we want a defensive lineman, go and get an impact defensive lineman, which is certainly, an option, but they have to be there. And the great thing is that I think that you can play this by ear now right through. If a great quarterback is there with one of your picks, because let's hope Denver continue to lose, why not? There's nothing wrong with investing a pick in the quarterback. If the great defensive lineman's there, then great. It might be that there's a great receiver that you want to take there and have a great number 3. I mean, imagine how great a top number 3 receiver would look on this offense, right? So you've got a lot of different options there that you can play with, and that's the exciting thing. I mean, for me, it's gone from the start in the year thinking, please have a pick in the top 5 so you can go and get a quarterback, to now thinking, wow, you've just got a load of picks, and I can't wait to see, to have a conversation about what we're going to spend those 5 high picks on. That's fun in itself. And right now, the Seahawks actually lost the position in draft today. I think because other teams lost, the Denver pick has gone from 10 to 11. And the Seahawks are still at 23 with their pick in the first round. But I find it interesting. And, the thing is, Robbie, having watched all of the games yesterday, I still think it's a fairly strange round one. I mean, a bit of a spoiler for tomorrow's article. Jalen Carter had a really good game for Georgia, so I've bumped him up on my board, and I'll talk a little bit about why. But then I thought Miles Murphy and Brian Bressee were incredibly disappointing for Clemson this weekend. I think that there are other defensive players that are a little bit overrated. I think maybe the second round, third round is going to be a better area to get defensive linemen if you can't get towards someone like Jalen Carter. I mean, Will Anderson was really disappointing, I thought, again, this weekend as Alabama lost to LSU. But I think there's some, there might be some positions that we're not really thinking of right now that could emerge. And I think that's the good thing, because it's just it may end up just being about adding talent, Robbie. Can you add talent? Just go and that's what they did very well in the last draft. Where's the value? Where's the talent? Just go and get it. And it might be that, hey, listen, I'm not advocating for it, but if Bijan Robinson is the best player on your board and he's there for you, why not have him to replace Rashad Penny? They'll cost about the same in terms of salary. I mean, just go and add talent. And that's how the perception, I think, is changing, Robbie. For me, it's now about go and get the best players you can probably get in this draft. I must admit, having watched Anthony Richardson again at the weekend, though, if you could bring him in and have him redshirt for a couple of years behind Geno Smith, that would be very exciting. But I've got a feeling that when all is said and done, because I've watched Anthony Richardson every game this year, and I know what he is, and people are very critical of him because they think he's playing like crap and he's just raw. He's not. He's doing a lot of good things. He's making huge plays. He's making reads, progressions. He's adjusting at the line of scrimmage like a lot of these quarterbacks are not. He's doing a lot of pro things very, very well. He's having a good year. I think he's got 17 touchdowns now and 7 interceptions. So he's improving. He's getting there. He's a massive X factor. I think he's going to be a top 5 pick, Robbie. But if you could get someone like him to redshirt, then wow, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, if you think the NFL season is weird, the college football season is just as bizarre this year. I mean, you're talking about guys who are not playing well or coming out of nowhere to play well, but just like teams in general. I mean, when was the last time Alabama lost twice in one season? I can't even remember. So it's just been a crazy, crazy thing. And I mean, I love watching what Notre Dame did to Clemson yesterday. Just run. I mean, if you keep that offense off the field, then you can't win the game. So fantastic. But yeah, I think what you're saying is, take the best player available and just build depth on your roster. Keep building it, and it doesn't really matter what position it is. If it's the best player, then take him, and it'll sort itself out. I would still love to snag a Will Levis or an Anthony Richardson. I know you're falling off on some of these guys, but there's still quarterbacks that I really like in this draft that I think are just playing on terrible teams, and I think they have an opportunity to come in and probably still sit behind Geno for a year and could really improve the ball club. So there's guys that I like, but we're just gonna have to see how it kind of plays, and maybe we're able to get them later on.
I think there's a top four, and then there's a massive gap. Frankly, I think there's a massive gap. I think it's increased in recent weeks, and I think people again, I'll talk a bit more about this tomorrow, but the Hendon Hooker types, for me, they're just like day 3 picks still. I really like DTR at UCLA, but again, how early are you going to take him? I still think. Now, I think the best case scenario for someone like DTR is that he can be a Jalen Hurts. And how early do you want to take somebody like that? I mean, he's not quite as sturdy as Jalen Hurts, but I think that's that's his sort of upside, I would say. And obviously, Hurts is playing very well, so it's a nice comp. But people weren't 100% sure whether Hurts would work out when they drafted him in round 2. But I think there's a big fall. But I just go on talent, and I think there are good players. I just don't think it's as great, sort of top 10 or 15. I've seen a couple of people saying, is there any like guards or centers? The answer is yes. I think it's a thick center class, but not the kind of center that I think the Seahawks look for. The Rams and the Seahawks have an Austin Blythe, Brian Allen type center, and all of the centers in this draft. There's no Tyler Linderbaum in this draft. They're all kind of big power guys. And as for guards, there aren't the natural guards that I think. I know people like the guy at Florida. I think he's a bit overrated. He's very sloppy frame. But there are tackles who can kick inside to guard, which I think are very interesting. So that's something. Again, big post coming tomorrow. Horizontal board will be published very soon. It's nearly at a point where I want to show it to the world, so it'll be there soon. Big thank you to Zorn76 for this super chat. That is massively appreciated. Thank you. I'm not sure I'll be eating turkey on Thanksgiving since I've been eating crow all season regarding the Seahawks. Great show as usual, fellas. Yeah, I think a lot of us feel that way. And I think after a rough few years, Adam, I think the Seahawks needed to show something to get people believing again. And I think that is fine. It's fine to sort of be like that. I don't think eternal blind faith is a characteristic that is required of every single fan. Sometimes you have to see something to believe it. And I think everybody, now that they're seeing this, will be believing it. And that's fine as well.
Yeah, I think at the start of the season, I said on this show, I wouldn't be surprised if the Seahawks won 1 game or 9 games, because we don't know what Geno Smith is going to be like when it really matters, when it basically becomes a coin flip game, push comes to shove, can you make the play? I didn't necessarily think that he was going to be the guy that could make the plays. And to be honest, there's 10 years of evidence that would suggest that he wasn't that guy. And, as I said last week, 300 teams had the opportunity to sign him over the last, 8 or 9 years. So there must be a reason, but he has shown that he can do it. And particularly in the last few games, there's been like, I'm not saying career defining, but season dictating drives that the ball has been put in Geno Smith's hand in our 20-yard line, and it's ended up 5 minutes later in the opposition end zone. And it's like, where has that come from? That is just remarkable. And I don't think anyone needs to eat crow, because if you were down on Geno Smith before the season, yeah, the whole world was. So, it's not like you were trying to be contrary and say, I'm not sure that Aaron Rodgers is actually very good at quarterback in 2015. Like, that would be, yeah, you can have crow on that. But we'd seen a disappointing team in the last 4 years that had put a huge amount of resources into the team, and they were underperforming what they were spending. That's I don't think that's that controversial thing to say. They were underperforming overall on the investment they've made in the team. And now they're not. And I don't think you need to feel guilty or think, I've not shown the team enough support. Everyone supports this team as they want to. And how fantastic that they're exceeding expectations. But I think there's a big difference between having to eat crow. Turkey's not great anyway for Thanksgiving, so maybe crow might be tastier. But yeah, like just enjoy it. And I don't think you need to castigate yourself for not thinking that a player who hasn't been good for a decade wouldn't be good again. Like, let's enjoy the fact that he is. That's great.
Yeah, I echo everything you've said. I think that's the right way of looking at it. I think it's interesting. I find it, I mean, just to go on just to finish off with a slightly different topic, I guess, in terms of, I see people in the comment section every week now pining on who is a good quarterback, who is not a good quarterback. And I definitely don't have all of the answers. I don't. But if there's one thing I feel like I've learned over the last 14 years of doing this blog, is that it is so important to sort of see transferable skills in a quarterback if you are going to project them to the next level. Now, these quarterbacks don't have to play in a pro-style offense to be able to say with some conviction they're going to be good at the next level. But if they are playing in a non-transferable offense, if they're playing in a half-field read offense or stuff like that, you have to see traits within them that you think, okay, that translates. Maybe they're going to have a bit of a learning curve, but I can see how that player goes to the next level. And I think part of the problem that a lot of people have who maybe don't have no social life and just spend all of their free time watching games like I do for the blog, is that you don't necessarily learn that sort of aspect about it. It's not that I've got any great special insight or anything. It's just that I'm a bit boring and watch all these things, and you kind of eventually just pick certain things up. So when you see, so for example, Hendon Hooker has not been very accurate this year, but you'd never know listening to the media, because they're just, wow, he's thrown that downfield to a guy who had 5 yards of separation, and most quarterbacks you would expect to make that throw. The scheme has worked very well for him. It's not asking a lot. He gets all of his reads from the sideline. I mean, he literally will go up to the line, will get everything organized, then will turn to the sideline, and they will tell him what to do. That is not transferable to the next level. So then when you watch Hooker, you think, right, I need to see certain aspects within his game that will possibly transfer to the next level to believe in him as a high pick. And it's the same with people like Michael Penix. And a number of people ask about Michael Penix. Michael Penix has got a very strong arm, but he's also in the same thing. His interception for a pick 6 against Oregon State was horrendous, because if you watch enough of this football, the offenses are all very similar. These half-field read, one-read offenses, they all have the in them where the quarterback takes the snap. He will look off to the left-hand side or the right-hand side. And that's the only thing they do. I'm going to try and hold the safety or the linebacker here, and then I'm going to throw it blind over the middle. You see it over and over again. I have seen C.J. Stroud, Hendon Hooker, and Michael Penix throw the exact same interception this season into a triangle of defenders. I have got screen grabs where there's an actual one receiver in the middle, and then there's like a triangle of defenders, 3 defenders, triple coverage. But because they're told at the sideline, this is the coverage, this is the play you need to go to. Right, I'll look off, I'll throw it blind. Oh, crap, it's an interception. That happens over and over again. And when people go, Will Levis is no good. Okay, Will Levis is going up to the line of scrimmage, and he's making all the reads, he's making all the adjustments. He's in San Francisco's offense. He played in LA's offense last year. He got sacked 6 more times against Missouri at the weekend. He's been sacked about 100 times this year. He doesn't throw to any good receivers apart from Tavion Robinson, who's not been good for a few weeks now. He's got freshman receivers he's throwing to. The O-line's crap. There's no real defense to speak of in support of him. And he is making plays downfield on the road, that are just wow plays. And people are comparing him to Josh Allen in the NFL. Not me. People are comparing him to Josh Allen and Justin Herbert because he's got that level of physical power. You watch him and you go, this is all transferable. They will throw out games like Tennessee where it's just a buzzsaw and nobody can play well in that kind of game. And people will just focus on what he can do. It's transferable. Anthony Richardson is going to the line. He's making adjustments. There's a lot of misdirection in that offense. He's organizing things. He's making sure everyone's in the right place. He's shifting protections. He's doing things that Stroud doesn't do, that Hooker doesn't do, that Penix doesn't do, that DTR doesn't do. You have to acknowledge that. These are just things that make it easier to project to the next level. These are things that people don't necessarily consider when they just watch a guy have a bad game and that's it. But here's the thing. Will Levis has had bad games this year. CJ Stroud had 70-odd yards at the weekend against Northwestern throwing. Bryce Young had a horrible game at the weekend for Alabama. So what are you going to do? Never draft a quarterback? Watch Josh Allen in college. He was shocking for Wyoming. He was awful. Watch Justin Herbert for Oregon. No good. Patrick Mahomes had clusters of interceptions. Andrew Luck had an interception in every one of his last 7 games for Stanford. You know, if you are waiting for perfection, you aren't going to see it. It's about transferable skills and situations to project to the next level. That's what it's about. Sorry, that was a bit of a rant, but that's something that's been weighing on my mind for a lot, because I sort of see the people talking online a lot about quarterbacks and what I kind of get the sense, Robbie, that for the most part, people don't really know what to look for. I'm not saying that I've not got all the answers, but I do find the conversation a little bit frustrating sometimes.
I think you're right on. I mean, you and I see eye to eye on this, and I mean, we disagree on a couple of quarterbacks, but for the most part, like, you know, can they, instead of just a one look read, are they actually going through the progressions? I think that's what you really need to look for when you're looking at, you know, some of these college quarterbacks and, you know, the system that they're playing in. You know, I'm going to say it again. I love the physical upside of Tyler Van Dyke. I know he's playing terrible this year, but I think it's the system he's in. I absolutely think that Mario Cristobal is absolutely the worst college football coach on the planet and should be fired immediately. He's doing Miami no service, and he's destroying him. He's a quarterback killer. He did the same thing to Justin Herbert, and I think if he decides to come out, I think he has the potential to be a really, really good football player. I don't think he has the upside of an Anthony Richardson or even a Will Levis, but I still think he's a very good college. I think he could be a very good NFL quarterback. Could be wrong. What do I know? I'm going to go ahead and just admit it. I thought Brock Osweiler was going to be the man. I was all dead set on Brock Osweiler when he was coming out. So what do I know? I could be totally wrong.
Now, he had a lot of talent at Arizona State. He
I was
good.
sold, man.
Hey,
I was sold.
The Broncos took him ahead of Russell Wilson. So there we go. Interesting. So yeah, the Seahawks going to win. Great victory. I'm just going to look through the stats before we finish off here and see if there's anything else that sort of stands out. Here's something that stands out, Adam. The Seahawks were 10 of 15 on third down. 10 of 15. That's really good.
There was a 3rd and 12, I think, that Geno unleashed one to Tyler Lockett, who I think then drew a flag for unnecessary roughness or hit to the helmet. I'm watching it on mute at that point. But, you know, I have always thought that the best way to avoid being bad on third down is to not get into third down if you can avoid it, because it is one of those plays that, it really can bring down your skill benefit over the opposition if you're in third down too regularly. And with Russell Wilson this isn't a Wilson bash, but the previous Seahawk offense, it did often seem like if it was 3rd and whatever, well, you know, this one's probably in the can. But third down is a viable play for the Seahawks again, and they're making stuff happen on third down that I just don't remember happening for a long time now. And it is great to be playing 3.5, 4 down football as opposed to kind of 2.5, 3 down football that I feel like we were playing on offense for the last 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I agree. And look, if anyone's got a final super chat, send them in, because we are going to wrap up now. I'm going to ask the fellas for their final thoughts, but if you've got something you want to say, final super chats, all good. Robbie, have you got a final thought on this team before next week's big game in Germany?
Just keep giving K9 the rock. I love the way that guy runs. He's a super fun, explosive player. I'm just so excited about these young, rookies that we have, corners. I mean, even Young made some plays today on special teams. That was super cool. It's cool to see these guys making plays early on in their careers, and it just gives me, hope for the future. I mean, here we are sitting 6-3, head of the NFC West, and looking like a team that has a chance to really go and make a playoff run, which I just never thought was possible. So for me, I'm just really enjoying the season.
Yeah, those playoff games are very exciting. I remember, I always sticks in my memory a little bit when I was covering a game in the northwest of England, and I was driving home, and the Seahawks were going to play the Panthers in the playoffs. So that would have been, I think, the 2014 season when there was the Cam Chancellor interception one. And I can remember driving home, and I think the Bengals were playing the early game, and I was like trying to get back in time for the game. Just that, but that excitement, thinking, driving home, it's like a 2.5, 3 hour drive, and I'm thinking, when I get back, I'm going to watch the Seahawks in a playoff game. It's just really exciting thought. There's nothing better than that, and it'd be great to sort of have that feeling again this year with this team. Adam, have you got a final thought on the Seahawks right now?
Well, to coin a great double negative, I haven't not been looking at flights to Seattle for the first weekend of the playoffs. 3-month baby, 3-month-old baby upstairs. I'm not entirely sure I'll get away with it, but you've got to have the groundwork done, Rob. You've got to just make sure if you can pull the trigger on a little Thursday to Tuesday jaunt, you got to make sure you've got the capabilities to do it. So just try and, get a bit of research done, just get the groundwork done, and let's see what happens. But that's where I am. So I don't think I could give you a more indicative idea of what I think about this team right now. That kayak.com is getting some heat from my iPhone.
I've been looking as well for the sort of the end of the season. There's a couple of games in January. I was thinking maybe I could get over for one of those. It has crossed my mind a little bit whether or not everything seems to cost a lot more at the moment because of gas prices and everything. So I'm not sure whether it's going to be possible, but I must admit I have had a little look as well myself to see if I can make a game at the end of the year in Seattle. Final super chat from Eli. Go Hawks F3. Eli Cash, thank you very much for that. Thank you for all of your super chats and all of your support. Live viewing figures again for this. Been fantastic tonight, and we really appreciate you checking out what we've got to say and following along. If you have not subscribed to the channel yet, please do. The numbers are going shooting up, so keep going. If you have not subscribed, can I please encourage you to do so? Give the video a like as well, because that really helps. And SeahawksDraftBlog.com for more analysis. And that big scouting piece is going to be falling tomorrow as well. And I'm going to be heading to Germany, and I'm hoping to get some stuff out there as well. But we will still have a live reaction, instant reaction. I might even do it in the stadium if the Wi-Fi is good enough. If not, I'll do it when I get back to the hotel. It might be a little bit later. It might not be immediately after the game, depending on how long it takes me to get set up. But just bear in mind that there will definitely be one. And as soon as it's live, you will, if you subscribe and you press the little bell icon to get notifications, you'll know when it's on. Or if you just follow me on Twitter, then you will see it on there as well. Or just head over to SeahawksDraftBlog.com because I embed the videos on there too. So I'll see you next week from Germany. We've had one final super chat from Reflect the Sun. Thank you for your support. Thank you to Adam and to Robbie for their time as well. Seahawks are 6-3, and it's 4 wins in a row. Enjoy your week, everybody. Until next time. Bye for now.